Thank you. This is kind of like the Area 51 thing because there's people camped there ready to like storm into this area that's off limits. I was told this is the Angular room, the Angular track, and I'm teaching something on React. So this is like me coming into the off limits area. Just kidding. I love all of you. Okay, if you haven't had a chance, feel free to jump on the poll. The correct answer is the Downton Abbey opening show. So everyone who chose the other two, you were wrong. We're going to yarn start this again. There we go. Hey, there's my face. Cool. I'm Dustin Myers. I teach React at Lambda School. I've been there for a little over a year and absolutely love teaching. I love programming. I've loved teaching for a long time. And to get to teach programming is really an amazing thing. If you've done it, you understand what I'm talking about. You can follow me on Twitter, DustinT314. And I have an NPM package that it's in beta, that we're currently building called React Conflux that combines the context API, React hooks, to give you modular state management. It's the bee's knees. It's awesome. So go check that out. All right, so my talk today is on React Suspense for data fetching, not the code splitting one, the one for data fetching. Who remembers the Iceland talk? Raise your hand. A few people? Yeah, thank you. So this was, March of 2018? And the day after, we were all like, oh, this is the coolest. Super excited, right? Well, December 8, 2018, 8 months after the Iceland talk, we're sitting there going, all right, Dan, where is it? Where's this awesome thing you demoed for us? And then the React 16 roadmap blog post came out in December last year and said, we will release React Suspense for data fetching mid-2019. So right now, right? Wrong. And now we're sitting here like this, please, why can't we have it? And we finally moved to the grief stage of acceptance, that we don't have React Suspense. So what even is React Suspense for data fetching? Well, it's all about the user experience. We know that user experience is important. Any UX folks out there? Hey, couple, awesome, a little bit. Cool. It's kind of that field that like we think we know what it is as developers, and then we talk to a real UX designer and we don't know. React Suspense is all about loading states and making them easier for us. So in development, loading states are hard, right? We've all built something like this. Spinners, we're waiting for data to come back from our API, and we have some kind of loading state in our applications. Or maybe you're a hipster, and you do it like this. What? Yeah, maybe you've got one of those. Those are fun. So this is where React Suspense steps in. So loading states are hard. React Suspense makes it easy. Does a couple more things for us. Handles the tough edge cases. What if you want to, in your application, what if you want to not render your spinner for like 800 milliseconds, and then if your API call comes back slower than 800 milliseconds, then you show a spinner, and then when the API call comes back, show your data. There's been studies that have shown that if you show a spinner right away, but for only like 400, 500 milliseconds, half a second, that it actually makes your app feel slower. So if you're showing spinners and loading states immediately, then it may feel slower than it actually is to your users. So React Suspense lets you suspend the suspense, if that makes sense, kind of inception there, for a given amount of time. So you can say, hey, I want to not load this component until my data comes back, and I'd rather have this loading indicator there first. I should have muted notifications. I want to have my spinner show, but I don't want that spinner to show up until like 6, 7, 800 milliseconds into the call. Because if it comes back in 300 milliseconds, I don't even need a loading state, and my app will fill super snappy, super fast. So React Suspense lets us handle that, those kind of tough edge cases, again, super easily. What if you have multiple unresolved calls? React Suspense will help with that as well. It also caches your data. So you can make a call that takes 3 seconds. You can make another call, search for a different thing that takes 3 seconds, go back to that first call, and the data is right there immediately ready for you. So what does this look like? Well, we have a suspense component that we give a fallback prop to. So in this case, we have loader. That's going to be our fallback. And we wrap our suspense component around whatever component is going to be fetching data. So show list here is going to be fetching data, and suspense is going to know when that data comes back. And it knows when the loading starts and when the data comes back. And it will suspend rendering show list until the data comes back. And in the meantime, it will render the fallback component that you give it. It could just be JSX, it could be text. You'll probably see mostly components like that. And then you'll notice the delay prop. I don't actually know the real name. Kent, is there a real name for it yet? Not a real name yet. Don't quote me on the delay prop, but there will be a mechanism to let you suspend your suspense for a specified amount of time. Okay, Facebook, we'll be watching. We'll be waiting. All right, so let's see this in action. Who wants to see suspense? Yeah, I like you. I like all of you. It was the everyone you. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're building today. We've got this application that searches for TV shows. So let's search for Stargate. Okay, we've got, here, there's our Stargate response. We could look for Psych, which we were just on, because any Psych fans out there? Yeah, I like you too. Okay, so how this is working is we've got a shows view component that has a suspense component wrapped around our show list component here. So for the fallback, we've added that loader spinner that you saw from React Loader Spinner. So let's go look at what show list is doing. Right now, it's not actually using suspense at all. So right now, suspense is completely useless in this case. So show list. We've got some state. Show list state is loading state. We've got an effect hook that says when our search term changes, we're going to go ahead and run this effect. So this effect here fetches our shows, sets is loading to true, fetches our shows, sets our shows once we fetch them, and then sets is loading to false. So down here, we've got our actual JSX, but if is loading it happens to be true, we're going to render our loader instead. Okay, who has written code like this with if is loading, return this thing, else return something else? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high. Be proud. I hate this. Oh, just kidding. No, we've all been here. This is where we're at today. And this is good. We want this experience for our users, right? We want them to see a loading indicator. We don't want them to just sit for a second and a half while we're fetching data. So this is good. We can do better. So we're going to import, I always got to look at this, unstable, you know what, let's just copy and paste. And while we're at it, Do not disturb. Oh, no, that was it. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to copy that. We're going to come over here. We're going to import unstable create resource as create resource from React Cache. So you do need a dependency called React Cache, and this is going to be this kind of provides the magic behind React Suspense. Okay, so let's talk about this. We've got our state for show list. React Cache is going to take care of that, so I'm going to delete. Is loading. The suspense component is going to take care of that one. This whole effect, fetching our data, managing that, React Cache is actually going to take care of that. This whole if is loading, React Suspense takes care of that. Hey, who likes deleting code? Yeah, look at that. That's awesome. Okay. Oh wait, we have an error here though. Show list is not defined. All right, let's define show list. Const show list equals what are we going to set to show list? Well, we need to use our create resource. We need to create a resource for our show list. So we're going to say const shows resource equals create resource. Okay, this is a function that takes in, as you can see, another function that returns a promise. So function that returns a promise, I've got one right here, fetch show terms, or fetch shows by search term. So I'm just going to pass that in to my resource. Okay, now I've got a resource, my shows resource. So this is going to give me my show list, shows resource. I'm going to read data from my shows list, and thank you. I was like, and we've got squiggly lines. There we go. Yes. All right. We can get rid of that line. We can get rid of these. Perfect. Hey, look at that. It fits all on one page. I love it. Okay, so when this component renders, we pass in a search term. Oh, this actually needs to be passed in to here. We need to tell it which resource to read. So when show list renders, we pass in a search term. Create resource is going to make an API call for us. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to come back with some data, and then it's going to render some data. So just looking at this without any other knowledge of create resource, React Cache, React Suspense, what's the error I'm going to get here when I render this component? Yeah, say it. Yeah, cannot read property map of undefined, right, for show list. So because show list is this thing here, so we don't know, that's kind of what we expect to happen. And in our shows form, by the way, this show list is not going to render until we hit enter on our show term. So let's come here. We're going to refresh the page. Let's go ahead and save all the things. It's because I forked and don't have the same one. I was wondering why I wasn't refreshing. Okay, there we go. Let's close that. Okay, so when I hit enter, we expect to see that message, that error message. Let's look at Pokemon. What? Thank you very much. Have a great day. No, just kidding. Magic, right? Isn't that the coolest? I didn't have to solve for the error. What if I don't have my show list? I didn't have to have my if is loading, return this spinner. That's all taken care of for me. So we're going to peek under the hood here a little bit at what create resource is. So if I wanted to create my own create resource, I would do something like this. So create resource is a function that takes in some kind of function, right? An async function. We'll say async func. And then what is it going to return? So It looks like when we call create resource and pass our function in, we create an object called shows resource, well, which we're capturing here with shows resource, that has a read property. So let's return an object here with a read property. This read property is a function that takes in your search term. So let's write a function here. Oh, didn't hit the shift. There we go. I always have trouble going back to my Apple keyboard after when I do these. All right, so let's just call this term, we can call it search term. Okay, so read is going to take in a search term, and it's going to do a couple things for us. First of all, it's going to check the cache from React Cache to see if we have already searched for this item. So we need a cache. And we're going to say if our cache at our search term, oh wait, let's see, cache dot, no, cache set, yeah. Okay, now I'm forgetting, yeah, cache dot query, okay. If that is something, then let's just return the data that's on the cache.
You misspelled search term.
Okay, thank you. Cache search term. Return. Okay, so if we've already searched for this, we don't need to do the rest of whatever read does, right? We can just return our data to show list, and there it is. However, if it's not, then we need to make our asynchronous call. So we're going to call our asynchronous function. We're going to pass in our search term. And here, we're going to do a couple of things. When it comes back, we're of course going to set our data to our search, to our cache. And then we're going to return our data. Okay, let me see if we're doing it here. Ah, I see. Sorry, I came this morning expecting to be in those chairs and saw that there was an opening. I'm like, oh, hey, I've got to talk. So excuse me if it's a little bit not quite tight there. So we're going to say const suspender equals async and pass in our search term. Yeah, we're going to capture the promise that's returned by our async func. So then we're just going to call dot then off of suspender. See, now if I was really prepared for this, if I had known I was giving this talk, I would have worn suspenders. That would have been a good visual for that. Okay. Of course, we want to dot catch. I'm not too concerned about an error right now because presentation time. The magic here is we take this promise, and before our promise resolves, we're going to say throw suspender. Yeah, take my suspenders off and throw them. Just kidding. This is the magic. Anyone see what's going on here? Anyone have that aha moment? Yeah. See, I knew I liked you. What's happening here, who's seen throw new error? Who's seen something like that, throwing in JavaScript? What happens? You throw a new error, it bubbles up and lands inside a catch block, right? So what's happening here is we're throwing this promise that we've created from this asynchronous function, and from inside our show list, Suspense has a catch block that is waiting for this to be thrown. And it checks to see if it's a promise or an actual error. And if it's a promise, it's going to render our loader. It's going to not render show list. So let's walk through show list real quick. We start rendering Where's show list? Show list is down here. We start rendering, no, this is show list. We start rendering our component. We pass in our search term. We get to this line. JavaScript engine says, here's the function. I'm going to execute this function. We go up here. We haven't touched this return. We go up here to create resource.read. We pass in a search term. We say, nope, we haven't searched this yet. It's not in our cache. So we start searching. We kick off this async func, and we throw our suspender. Throwing our suspender stops the JavaScript engine from coming back here and going to our return. So we're not going to get to this showList.map and get any error or see any empty state from like an empty array. We're not even going to touch this code after we have thrown this promise. Instead, Suspense is going to say, well, I'm going to not continue executing. I'm just going to go ahead and display my loader. Then, when the data comes back, when Suspense sees that that promise has been resolved, remember it caught the promise that we threw? It sees that it's been resolved. It comes back here, and it re-renders show list. So we go back to show list. We start re-rendering. We look at this line. JavaScript engine says, OK, here's a function. I'm going to call this function. I go into create resource.read, or shows resource.read, pass in my search term. Hey, I have data for this because it's been returned right here. It's been set to our cache. I have data. I'll go ahead and return my data and set that to show list and render this component. Yeah, it's so cool. Well, let's make sure it actually works. Whoa, that might be a little premature. Hold on. Let's try this. Let's try it for psych. Got our loader and our data. Woo! Now, feel free. No, I'm just kidding. But let's see if the caching works too. So we'll look up, what's another show? The card. I don't know what that is.
Picard.
Card. I'm just going to search for card. P-I-C-A-R-D. Oh, Picard. Oh. I was like, the card, yes. OK, now let's go back to psych, and let's see if we get that, that loader. Nope, there's our data. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll be here around if you want to chat. Thank you.